In the massive universe of comic book heroes, Adam Warlock is just different. And it's not really about his cosmic powers. It's because his entire story, his whole life, can be read in two completely different, totally fascinating ways. So today, we're going to dive deep and try to unpack the two souls living inside this one incredibly complex character.
And honestly, this is the best way to think about him. His story starts out as one thing, a weapon, a fortress built for war, but then it gets completely repurposed into something else, something grander, a spiritual cathedral. But here's the cool part. That original foundation, it never really goes away. So let's go explore just how this strange and beautiful house got built.
All right, so to really get how this house was built, we've got to start at the beginning, with the original foundation. Before Adam Warlock became this cathedral of cosmic ideas, he was basically just an abandoned fortress, a weapon just sitting there waiting for a purpose.
Yeah, before he was Adam Warlock, he was just him. That was his name. He was engineered in a lab to be this perfect golden being with unbelievable power, but he came out of his cocoon with absolutely zero direction. Think about that. A living paradox. He has all this unlimited potential, but no purpose at all. Just a total blank slate waiting for someone to write on it.
And his origin is so important here. I mean, he was literally built in a lab by this group called the Beehive. Their goal was pretty simple and pretty sinister: create the perfect living weapon to go out and conquer the world. But, well, they kind of got more than they bargained for. They created a being so perfect he was completely beyond their control. They ended up with a weapon that just refused to be wielded.
And right from the very start, there was this creative tug-of-war happening behind the scenes. His co-creator, the legendary Jack Kirby, he saw him as this grand, philosophical figure, like something straight out of an Ayn Rand novel. But Stan Lee, he kind of pumped the brakes and steered it into a more familiar story, the whole misunderstood monster trope. And that little change pretty much stripped the character of any clear purpose right from the get-go.
So, what's the result of all this? Total chaos. He hatches, immediately destroys the scientists who made him, and then just wanders off into space. He has no moral compass whatsoever. At one point, he actually tries to kidnap Thor's girlfriend, not because he's evil, but more like a confused kid who doesn't know any better. He is just pure, raw power, with absolutely no principles to guide it. A truly abandoned foundation.
But then, a new architect comes along and finds this abandoned project. And where the first guys saw a fortress, he saw the potential for a cathedral. And this, right here, is where the story takes a wild turn.
So, flash forward to 1972. The editor, Roy Thomas, gets this big idea. He's inspired by, of all things, the rock opera Jesus Christ Superstar, and he decides to completely reinvent the character. He takes this aimless being, him, gives him the name Adam Warlock, and very deliberately starts building this whole superhero messiah narrative around him. And believe me, this was not subtle. It was the entire point.
Okay, so if you're going to have a messiah, you need a world that desperately needs saving, right? Enter Counter-Earth. It was created by this godlike being, the High Evolutionary, to be a perfect paradise, totally free from evil. But, of course, this paradise gets corrupted. A satanic figure called the Man-Beast shows up and twists it into this dark, ugly mockery of itself. The stage is officially set for a savior. And the new story they built for him has this very clear, almost biblical structure. You've got the father figure, the High Evolutionary, who sends Warlock, his son, to save his corrupted creation. And check this out. Warlock isn't sent to rule or conquer. He's sent to be a shepherd. And to help him, he's given the Soul Gem, which is described as a piece of his creator's own soul. I mean, the parallels here are pretty hard to miss. And this whole journey just builds and builds into a complete messianic arc. Warlock gets his mission, he faces trials and betrayals, he suffers a selfless death to save everyone, he's resurrected, in a cave no less, and finally he ascends into the heavens. It's like a point-for-point parallel with the story of Christ, just, transplanted into this wild cosmic setting.
And this right here, this is the powerful final image of that first interpretation. His job on Counter-Earth is done. He saved the world, planted new seeds of hope, and now he rises up into the heavens. The Space Jesus story is complete. The cathedral has been built.
But what if that's not the only story being told here?
What if we've been looking at the wrong set of blueprints this whole time? What if saving the world actually wasn't the point at all? So let's do this. Let's look at that exact same story, but now through a completely different and way more subversive philosophical lens. This is where you can start to see that old abandoned fortress showing through the cathedral's walls.
Okay, so in the second reading, the characters suddenly take on these new symbolic roles. The High Evolutionary, he is no longer a benevolent god. Now he represents the old law, an outside force telling you what's right and wrong. And the villain, the Magus, he becomes the Shadow, this cynical idea that every savior eventually becomes a tyrant. And Warlock himself, he's the weary child, a being who is just exhausted by his own godlike perfection.
So what's driving him in this version of the story? It's not some noble desire to do good. It's a deep, profound weariness of being a god. He's got something called cosmic awareness, which means he can see all possible futures. And in every single one, his divine destiny is to become a tyrant, to become the Magus. For him, being a perfect god isn't a gift, it's a trap. It's a meaningless, cosmic dead end.
And this just flips the whole concept of salvation on its head. The Space Jesus story is all about an external force, a god saving the world. But this Nietzschean reading, it's about an internal act. It's about what he calls the suicide of the ego. It's an act of self-overcoming that saves the self. See the difference? It's not about saving humanity. It's about saving himself from his own preordained divine destiny.
In the climactic, this reading is absolutely incredible. Warlock confronts his future self, the evil Magus, and he kills him. But this isn't a tragedy. It's an act of pure liberation. In Nietzsche's philosophy, this is self-overcoming, the ultimate act of the Übermensch, or Overman. He's not just killing a bad guy, he is murdering his own pre-written destiny so that he can finally be free. He kills the god inside himself to save the man.
And this slide just captures those two opposing endings perfectly. On the left, you've got the first conclusion, the Messiah ascending to the heavens. But the panel on the right, that's the second ending. And it's summed up by a line from Nietzsche's Zarathustra. He wills his own going under. Instead of rising up to heaven, he chooses to descend, to go back down to the dirt of the earth.
So, which is it? Is he Space Jesus or is he some German philosopher in a cape? Well, the real answer, the beautiful answer is, he's both. The real genius here is seeing the finished house and realizing that both blueprints are still visible.
I think this visual really nails the final idea. The reason Warlock has endured, the source of his power as a character, comes from this constant tension inside him. He is the shepherd and the wanderer, the light and the thorns, all at once. These two huge, opposing philosophies are never resolved. They're just always there, in this constant, fascinating dialogue with each other.
And at the end of the day, we don't have to choose one reading over the other. He is the fortress and the cathedral. The character's incredible depth comes from the fact that the messianic savior and the god-killing Übermensch exist together, inside the same story, often driving the very same action. And that leaves us with one last big, fascinating question to chew on. What really defines a true savior? Is it someone sent down from on high to redeem the world? Or is it someone who finds the courage to destroy their own perfection, to kill their own inner god, so they can finally become truly human?